Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and here we are at essentially the end of the OP04 format here in North America. It's been a little bit of a wild ride, especially for the second half of it, with the restriction list we got it, and how we got it, and how, it's ending, and just kind of everything about it. So I wanted to do just kind of a wrap-up video for not only this meta, but just kind of discussion of this restriction list in particular, the effects of it, as well as kind of my hopes for the future as well. So that's kind of the point of this video. And real quick before we get started, I do want to talk about the sponsor for this video, Into the AM. I was first approached by the Into the AM team back in May, and I got these shirts as well as a pair of shorts. I really like their unique designs, and if they look familiar, it's because they've been staples of my wardrobe ever since. And if you need me to put that in context, I've been wearing Into the AM t-shirts longer than I've been hating red in One Piece, which people in my comments insist has been always. Ironically and unintentionally, I was even wearing one of their shirts during one of my Is Red Too Good videos. Look at past me, probably saying something like, Newgate is good, but they'll never ban it. Anyways, if you use my link in the description, you'll get a whole 10% off their entire website of graphic tees, shorts, and just other clothing items that they have there. I highly recommend it, and I really do love these shirts. They've been go-tos for these past couple of months for my regular shirt rotation. They also currently have a Black Friday sale that goes from now until November 30th. There's markdowns from 30 to 80% of shirts on their store right now, which you can use in conjunction to my 10% discount. And they will also have some additional Black Friday sales during Black Friday. So again, thank you to Into the AM. Use my link in the description, and let's get on into this video. So this is an opinion piece, and I do say that because a lot of my content does tend to be more just fact-driven and just presenting data, and I want to just say these are my own opinions. These are reflecting on data that I have and my own experiences, and this is not, again, like a call for action for Bandai. I don't think I'm the only opinion, and I do genuinely like hearing other people's opinions in the comments to kind of get what you guys are feeling and your own opinions in the same way. So I always kind of put this disclaimer there for these videos. But Too Long Didn't Watch also, I think the meta was fresh for this last month that we had of it. I think the restrictions were net positive, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And I hope we continue to get unique and different metas from Japan, which again, I know that one's a little bit of a heavy one, and we'll talk about that more later in the video too, and why I have that opinion. And then also, in case you don't know it, this restriction is not permanent. At least it's going to be restricted to, lifted December 8th, at least according to Bandai, on November 7th. That might have changed, but that's a lot of expectations going into OP05 that all the cards here that were restricted or banned are going to go back to where they were, at least in the Japanese meta. But I guess we'll kind of see what that looks like in the future. Anyways, that's kind of what that looks like. So starting off for the announcement for this. So November 1st is when this restriction list was announced. It was announced online, mostly on Twitter and their Facebooks and other socials with this tweet here, and I think the biggest issue that a lot of people had, there's three main issues when this was announced, the length of how long this was happening, and the specific cards that were for it. So this happened November 1st, which was about a month and a half into this format, which is kind of past the halfway mark in more times than not, and then which also meant that there are only a couple of events that were affected by this. This is a Thursday, so which means that the weekend of afterwards, this was not restricted. The hit list was not hit for that. So the November 4th events, or 3rd and 4th events, weren't affected by this, and that only meant that there are like pretty much 2 weekends for this restriction list too, which is also kind of weird because Starter Deck 10 was legal for the second weekend of it, but not the first weekend of it. So all I'm just kind of saying is that it was just a weird time for a restriction like this, because it didn't, make a really big impact or splash. Even if it was like bigger, then more cards were hit, only a couple turns would be hit by it. And then the second is the length of it, which in the sense of that, because of this too, and they kind of you'll see that November 7th, they posted a reply to the original tweet that they're going to be flipping it during December 8th with the release of OP05. And I think that's kind of, with my own opinion, there's two thoughts, like that it was always supposed to be that and it wasn't communicated correctly, or the fact that they saw that people were kind of upset or just bewildered by this restriction list, which is specific cards. It was a wild list, whatever. But they kind of wanted to backtrack and be like, oh, by the way, this is just like a little test format. So that, or they just did see everyone kind of flip and they're like, okay, we got to just say, oh, it's temporary and just kind of go for it. But the specific cards for it, mostly it was just Nami, and Newgate. And part of the reason is that I think like all three of the other cards, I think people were, they're on people's hate list, but Nami was just not one of them. It was a bit out of left field, but also it kind of got like the double damage that it was like literally like 2 days before. Look, this is October 29th. They are showcasing this card on their Twitter like, hey, look at this Nami that you get in the Star Deck 10, which releases in a week after their original restriction list ban, right? So that feels really bad that they said, hey, one of the cards that you get from this deck you literally can't use because we're banning it like the week before the product even hits shelf, which is really weird. And in case you guys don't even know, this Nami is just a reprint of one from set 1. So it's a card that's existed for a while. It's not a new card they banned on release, but it was kind of that. But also with Newgate right here, they had this premium Bandai event. So like November 1st, they said, hey, all of these are banned. And then they're also like, oh, by the way, 2 days, you should buy this set that has the Newgate leader in it. So all of the timing was just kind of a little bit weird, and it was also just doubly weird where, and also the Marco had like, top 64 prizing for it, and just all the cards are really good, and they got reprints and everything else. So it just, the timing of everything was just bizarre and didn't really make sense. Is all I'm just kind of say. So that was kind of a part of I think the bad taste in a lot of people's mouth was strictly because of all the weirdness about it. And then again, like they retracted it like a week later, probably because people were complaining about it, or at least they publicly said it and made it more straightforward that this was a temporary restriction list, unlike the first one, which was a maybe we'll lift the restrictions kind of thing. So going into this, so this was my original thought going into the new meta with this, and a lot of people had a lot of thoughts. I think the biggest thing was literally Big Mom. A lot of people thought it was going to be tier 0, and it was something that was going to be just the terror of the format. It was the best deck before the restrictions. Red was the only thing keeping in check. I did do a tier list going into kind of the month as well, and this is kind of where my eyes are. I think this was somewhat okay. I think this top row is fine, besides me just saying, oh, Linland's just the worst Katakuri, and Katakuri is good. Just no one believes in Linland. Everyone just goes to Katakuri. Magellan's probably a little bit too high. Nami might even be too high, and a lot of these are, I think, a good spot. Luffy was probably like a little bit too low. This leader does do well with Newgate out of the meta, but just kind of like an okay, I think, perception into it. But a lot of people are saying, oh, the faces that we've seen for Newgate is just going to take over what the Katakuri is going to be half the pie chart now, not Newgate's face. So this was just like a really big issue for a lot of people. They felt like Red was over nerfed in a lot of ways. They thought that Red was just going to go away 100% because of this. And I personally remember, as someone who's really invested with it, someone who made a video going over the ban list and restriction list, my own opinion and my own insight and what I saw personally with my own eyes is a lot of people were not very optimistic about these changes. They thought they were bad, they thought they were weird, and they thought that it was just kind of like a weird thing that Bandai was doing in November, right? So that's kind of the idea with it. So that was going on into it, and then let's go into like kind of the meta that was before, during, and then kind of like the aftermath too. So this is the 4.0 meta. So this is like the last 6 events, like large ones that happened outside of this. I also say that the kind of top 3, these were events that happened essentially during the time when they said that like this was the weekend of November 3rd, so people knew that the cards were getting hit, specifically Newgate. So like I think my own perception is more people were playing Newgate and all the red cards that were going to get banned because I thought they would never get the chance to play it again, right? So because of that, look, like there's so much Newgate. Like you'll see he is super duper present on here, and I did the math. So on these last 6 events, all of these were 512-ish caps for it, and out of top 60 or top 16, 64% of the decks were red, meaning Newgate, Law, or Zora. I also think I snuck in Ace because Ace did a little bit of good jobs there for like the TAC, as well as the PPG November online Treasure Cup. And also, if you want any of this data, this is all on my website, which is linked in the description. But 67% of the top cut was one color. Like maybe a little bit less if you say Trafalgar Laws is red, green, or whatever. But it was very, very present for this. And 5 of these events, red won with them, and one of them was Rebecca won the entire thing with it. But I think in my mind, I think it was red was doing too well, right? Just looking at all the data and just even like the end of 4.0, it's what it is, right? This is 4.1, so this is the weekend afterwards. There are only 3 events that I know in the English version that ran like larger events for them. There were the LPG's Brisbane regionals. Top Cut has a Treasure Cup online, and Core TCG had their Pasadena regionals, which is also like a 1,300 person plus event. And look at these pie charts. Like, look at how diverse these are, specifically like the Core TCG one here. And obviously, Katakuri does have like some good, like big parts of these pie charts. And I think part of it is because a lot of people were on Katakuri, and I have the data there that people were on the deck a lot. But I would also say that for as many people who are on Katakuri, they weren't topping as high as they should have been. They didn't really convert into top 16s well. Like LPG, like the Brisbane event, I think they did get over the hump for it, but it's just like a lot of decks doing just very, very well because of they just brought him, right? But we had 3 different winners. We had an OP04 Dofi, a Katakuri, and an OP01 Law. Law, with the restriction list, was still able to win one of these events as well. So I think that is kind of interesting there. And like, again, you can look and compare contrast. Like, even like Pasadena, this is a top 32 compared to the other ones, which are top 16. So there is more room for more diversity, but that's there too. And then like 4.5, this is this past weekend, and again, the last weekend, which really does stink. But look at how much diversity for this one. Like the November Ultimate Cup, again, like Katakuri and I think Dofi are like the 2 best decks in this format. But even then, they play completely different. They're completely different colors and decks, which are really cool. And there's just so much stuff that's viable. Like, look at the Carta Magica event. This, again, was a top 32 cut because it was a 10,024 cap for this event. They had over 800 players. But there's just a lot of decks that are just very viable right now. There's a lot of new stuff. This is, again, with Star Deck 10. And with that, Star Deck 10 Luffy did win one of the events. Dofi, OP04 won, and Queen also one of them too. So which Queen has one in like the red centered meta as well. But I honestly personally think that this data shows like there's just more diversity, and if we had longer time in this, I'm sure that it would probably look towards more of these pie charts where people kind of know what's up. But the thing I just kind of want to mention is that because we have this new meta and because we have this room for discovery, there's a lot of people trying out a lot of new decks, and I think that's really fun for that discovery era, which traditionally we don't get since we know what the matchups and what the meta looks like when Japan hands it over to us when we get that in the future. So that's kind of just what I have, and just kind of showing off that data that I've been collecting. And my final kind of opinion on a lot of this too is that the meta was fresh, and like you'll see that this is pretty much the 3 bullet points from before. The restrictions were positive, and honestly, I think that a lot of people got hung up on Nami because it was a little bit weird, and I'll still say it's a weird pick for it, and probably should not have been picked. But a lot of people like inherently said like, oh, they shouldn't have banned Nami. They sold all their all arts, and like, Charlatan's broken. That card should be at 1 or 0, and I still maybe kind of believe that. We'll see. But I think that the restrictions were positive for the meta in the time that we had it, which I think is really important. And that's just kind of what I want. I want to be able to have some unique metas that we can have in North America. I don't think it really matters if we have a different format between Japan, because again, the crossplay from that is like a world events once a year, right? That's what we have. If we had more regular tournaments where they were just kind of like worldwide, sure, it would make sense to have like a unique and kind of glorifying. But why would you not want to be able to have like a better meta if after Japan plays it for 2 or 3 months, they give us some restrictions to say these get loosen up the meta, this makes some decks better, this makes more things viable. And I think that's something that's really positive for a card game environment in general. So I know these are all my opinions, and you guys can criticize them and have your own opinions on that too, but that's just kind of what I've experienced and what my own experiences are with like card games and just seeing all these differences too. So that's kind of the video for this one. I know it was just kind of maybe abruptly ended with it, but I did just kind of want to talk about my thoughts with this restriction list, with it just going away after this, which again is the biggest shame, that this might be like the healthiest meta that we have in One Piece right now. And it's like 2 weeks. It's like 2 weeks and then it's kind of done. So I don't know. That's going to be this video. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know. If I have bad takes, let me know. I do also want to say again, thank you to Into the AM for sponsoring this video as well. Literally wearing one of the shirts right now. This one was planned unlike the other videos, but I do appreciate it once again, and hope you catch you all next time.